So picture this scenario. It's a Friday afternoon, like 4:55 p.m.
Oh, the worst time for anything to happen.
Right, the absolute worst. So a frantic email comes in from a real estate agent, and they're trying to close this multi-million-dollar property, and they urgently need to change the wiring instructions.
Yeah, I think we all know where this is going.
You know it. The escrow officer is exhausted. They just want to go home, so they make the change and send the funds. And then Monday morning rolls around, and everyone realizes the email domain was misspelled by like a single letter.
A single letter.
Just one letter. And the money is just gone, vanished.
I mean, in 2025 alone, the FBI logged over $250 million disappearing exactly like this.
It's staggering, honestly.
It really is. Welcome to Dataverse by Nina Pohl, everyone. I'm your host, and this is episode number 42. Today on this deep dive, we are looking at the ultimate weapon trying to stop that exact kind of financial bleed. The topic is AI in title insurance, the 2026 guide.
And, there's this phenomenal paradox here.
Yeah, because the central tension in this research we're looking at is that the exact same technology that can save your business from, well, catastrophic fraud.
Right.
It's the same technology that could completely unravel your internal security if you just, implement it blindly.
Which is terrifying. Okay, let's unpack this because we really need to establish a baseline before we get into the existential threats.
Definitely.
So the core thesis of our source material today really just dismantles this idea that AI is one big monolithic magic wand. It divides AI into two totally different layers.
Right, the transaction layer and the decision layer.
Exactly. And understanding that difference, it isn't just academic. For you listening right now, it dictates whether you're just buying a basic tool or if you're actually transforming your entire enterprise.
Yeah, and we really have to look at the adoption numbers to understand why this split matters so much. So Qualia's 2025 State of AI in Title and Escrow report, it shows that nearly 90% of respondents are already using at least one AI tool.
90%. That's basically everyone.
It is. And the sentiment is overwhelmingly positive, too. Like 86% are neutral to very optimistic about AI changing their jobs.
Wow, okay.
So because adoption is pretty much universal at this point, simply having an AI tool, that doesn't give you a competitive advantage anymore.
It's just table stakes.
Exactly. It just means you're keeping the lights on.
It kind of sounds like having an internet connection back in the late 90s, right? Like at first it was this massive superpower. But then a few years later, if you didn't have it, you just couldn't do business.
That is the perfect historical parallel. And I think that brings us right to the first of the two layers, which is transaction layer AI.
Okay, break that down for us.
So this layer is entirely focused on automating work inside a single specific file. It's handling the daily, repetitive grind.
The busy work.
Right. We're talking about extracting data from documents, automatically updating clients on closing statuses, and like you mentioned in the intro, flagging those fraudulent emails.
Got it.
And the source is very clear on this. By 2027, transaction layer AI is going to be the absolute standard baseline cost of doing business.
I want to use a practical analogy here for the listener. Transaction AI feels a lot like the GPS navigation app on your phone.
I like that.
Right, because it gets you from point A to point B much faster, it reroutes you around traffic, and literally every single driver on the road has it. But your GPS cannot tell you why you're driving to that destination in the first place.
Exactly.
Or if there's like a more profitable city you should be driving to instead.
Right. It optimizes the journey, but it's completely blind to your overall strategy.
Which naturally leads us to the second layer, the decision layer AI. So, sticking with that GPS analogy, this would be like having a world-class business strategist sitting right there in your passenger seat.
Yeah, they aren't looking at the next left turn.
No, they're looking at macroeconomic maps of the entire country, telling you which emerging markets you need to expand into next.
Because decision layer AI answers holistic structural questions about the business itself. It lifts your view out of that individual file.
Right.
So instead of asking the system, is this specific deed clear? You're asking the AI which of our operating counties generated the most profitable orders this quarter.
Or like which specific sales reps are actually growing our premium volume versus just treading water.
Exactly. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a massive gap here.
A gap between having the transaction AI and actually achieving that decision AI.
A monumental gap. And it really comes down to structural integration. Because when we see that 90% adoption figure, we're mostly looking at individuals trying out a gadget.
Like someone using ChatGPT to write an email.
Right. A single escrow assistant using a chatbot to draft a response.
Yeah.
That's just one person finding a shortcut. But if you want your entire executive team to be able to query complex market share metrics on the spot,
In plain English.
yes, and get an immediate, accurate answer, that requires your company's underlying data to be fundamentally reorganized.
Okay, I want to hold off on that structural reorganization for just a second because we really need to interrogate what's actually happening at that baseline transaction layer first.
Sure.
Because if everyone is using it, we need to understand the nuts and bolts of how it's working before we try to diagnose why scaling it up is so hard. The source mentions AI-assisted title search and examination as a major win. How is that actually functioning under the hood?
Well, a few years ago, basic software used simple OCR optical character recognition.
Just looking for keywords, basically.
Exactly. So if a document had the phrase, "This property is free of any lien," the old dumb software would just flag the word lien and throw a warning.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It was. But modern AI models use natural language processing to understand the context of the whole sentence. So they can read, like, centuries-old legal descriptions, surface the actual encumbrances, and instantly draft the complex exception language that you need for the title commitment.
Okay, but surely you don't just let the AI finalize a legal title commitment completely on its own, right?
Oh, never. No. The human examiner remains the critical failsafe.
Okay, good.
The AI drafts the complex language, and then the examiner just reviews it, clicking approve or reject. It essentially turns the most agonizing, research-heavy part of a title file into a much faster editorial review task.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah, the human judgment and, more importantly, the legal liability. That stays exactly where it belongs, with the human.
That makes total sense. You're basically shifting the human from being a data gatherer to being a decision maker.
Precisely.
But the source also highlights order intake and data extraction as this huge transaction win. You know, the AI identifies names, property addresses, loan amounts. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, because the source explicitly notes that AI's ability to read a clean page is incredibly high. So if the AI is essentially getting an A+ on reading comprehension, why is automated order intake still such a notoriously difficult bottleneck for title companies to actually solve?
You are hitting on the hidden trap of AI data extraction right there.
Tell.
So the failure point almost never happens when the AI reads the document. The failure happens during the handoff.
A handoff to what?
Think about an AI reading a complex deed. It correctly identifies the name John Doe. But your company's ERP, your enterprise resource planning software, it doesn't just have a generic name box.
Right, it has fields for like buyer one, borrower, guarantor, trustee.
Exactly. So the AI knows what the information is, but it fails the geography test of where to put it in your specific software.
Oh, wow. So if it shoves John Doe into the guarantor field instead of the buyer field, a human still has to go in, realize it's wrong, delete it, and retype it manually.
Right. And the efficiency is instantly destroyed.
That is so frustrating.
It is. And vendors often boast about their AI's document-level accuracy score, but that's really just a vanity metric. You have to evaluate an AI tool based on what actually lands correctly in your ERP's specific fields.
Which brings us back to that nightmare scenario we opened the show with, wire fraud. I mean, the FBI numbers are just staggering. Over 12,000 complaints, 275.1 million lost in real estate, plus another 3 billion in broader business email compromise. How exactly does this transaction layer AI stop a hacker who has spent weeks perfectly mimicking a real estate agent's tone?
Well, it comes down to processing speed and pattern recognition that human eyes simply cannot match.
Because a human escrow officer is just skimming the email.
Right. They might not notice that an email came in at an unusual time, or that the reply to domain has 2 N's instead of 1, or, that the routing number belongs to an out-of-state digital bank instead of the local credit union they normally use.
Yeah, especially because that human is probably rushing to close the file before the weekend.
Exactly. But the AI model isn't rushed. In milliseconds, it scans the metadata, the syntax, the historical behavior patterns of that specific email address, and the routing number anomalies.
That's incredible.
It calculates a risk probability instantly. If it flags an outlier, it freezes the transaction, and stopping just one of those diverted wires, that saves a company not just millions of dollars, but weeks of forensic accounting and basically irreversible reputational damage.
Okay, so the transaction layer is clearly doing incredibly heavy lifting. It's vital. But solving these individual problems introduces this massive new vulnerability, right?
It does.
Because if this AI is seamlessly reading every email, every deed, and every financial document to do its job, Who is watching what the AI actually has access to?
Right. And that brings us to what the source calls the governance gap.
Let's talk about that.
This is where the aggressive adoption of AI becomes a really severe liability. Because according to that 2025 Qualia survey, while almost 90% of organizations are using AI, only 17% have actually implemented AI security controls.
Only 17%. That feels like a ticking time bomb.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Adoption is leaving regulation completely in the dust.
So what is the actual mechanical risk there? Because we hear a lot in the news about AI hallucinating or making things up. Is that the primary danger?
I mean, hallucinations are a problem, sure. But the far more terrifying risk is an AI that is perfectly accurate but fundamentally ungoverned.
Ungoverned how?
Well, think about how AI answers questions. It often relies on ingesting massive amounts of company data into a vector database.
Okay.
But if that database doesn't inherit the strict row-level security permissions of your original HR or financial software, you have a massive problem.
Wait, so if a junior processor asks an internal AI chatbot, what is the branch manager's salary, or what are the profit margins on this specific client?
The AI might cheerfully provide a 100% accurate answer, completely bypassing your traditional access controls.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of giving every single employee a master key that opens every filing cabinet in the corporate headquarters, just because they asked the AI nicely.
That is genuinely terrifying. And that total lack of structural governance is exactly why moving from that basic transaction layer up to the strategic decision layer usually ends in disaster, right?
Exactly. The AI itself is smart enough. The failure happens in the data foundation.
Right. And our source actually outlines 3 specific architectural problems that explain why AI answers come back completely wrong when companies try to scale up. Let's go through them. What's problem number 1?
The first barrier is inconsistent definitions. And the source uses a really great operational example here. The difference between canceling, which is an ongoing process, and canceled, which is a final state.
Okay, let's paint a picture for the listener of how catastrophic this can be in the real world.
Please do.
Imagine you're in a highly tense Q3 board meeting. The VP of sales stands up and presents a report showing revenue is up. Because, their localized report defines an order as active until the final canceled timestamp is hit.
Right.
But then the VP of operations stands up and shows revenue is down because their localized department report filters out any file the exact moment it enters the canceling process.
And here's the kicker. Both of them will swear on their lives that the AI generated the correct report.
Because locally, they did.
Exactly. The AI just processed the logic it was given. What's fascinating here is that if you just slap an AI chatbot on top of existing messy reporting silos, you don't actually get better insights.
No, you just serve up contradictory answers at lightning speed.
Exactly.
But even if you somehow manage to get everyone in the exact same office using the exact same definitions, you still hit a technological wall. Because title companies don't just use one neat piece of software.
And that brings us to problem 2, unjoined systems.
Yeah, a standard title operation is a patchwork of at least 4 distinct software silos.
Which are?
Well, you have your main production ERP where the files are actually worked. Then you have an MLS feed pulling in external property data.
Okay, that's 2. You have your financial ledgers, something like Microsoft Dynamics 365. And finally, you have your CRM, like HubSpot, tracking your sales relationships.
And none of these systems naturally speak the same language.
Often they refuse to speak at all. In many cases, these older ERPs don't even expose APIs.
With their application programming interfaces.
Right. An API is essentially a digital handshake that lets 2 programs share data securely. Without those digital handshakes, your systems are just isolated islands.
So if you don't extract, transform, and join that data manually, your decision layer AI cannot see the whole picture.
Not at all. It can only give you advice based on one single island.
Which leads directly to problem 3, missing history. And this one fascinated me because it deals with how data physically lives on a server.
Oh, this trips up so many companies. Let's go back to our canceling versus canceled example.
Okay.
When a file moves from one status to the next, that is a change over time. But many basic database models are designed to save storage space.
So what do?
They simply overwrite the old status with the new status. They only store the present moment.
It's like trying to understand a complex movie, but you're only allowed to look at a single photograph of the final scene.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, the main character survived, but you have absolutely no idea how they got there, how long it took, or who helped them.
Right. So if a manager asks the AI, how many files were stuck in the canceling phase last Tuesday? The AI literally cannot answer.
Because the data is gone.
It cannot reconstruct a historical timeline that your data platform overwrote and destroyed.
Okay, so we have messy definitions, we have isolated software islands, and we have amnesiac databases. How do you actually fix this without throwing away millions of dollars of existing software?
Well, our source material provides a mandatory 4-step architecture blueprint to solve this. They call it the sequencing rule.
All right, lay out the sequencing rule for us.
So if you want to achieve true conversational business intelligence, where you can just ask your data a question and completely trust the answer, you have to follow this sequence.
Step 1.
Step 1 is your title ERP. This is your system of record for doing the daily work. And the golden rule here is to keep your complex reporting out of the ERP.
Right, because it's built for transactions, not analytics.
Exactly. Then, step 2 is building a data warehouse or a data lakehouse.
So think of a data warehouse like a massive Costco. You're taking all the raw goods from your ERP, your CRM, your financial ledgers, and you're bringing them all into one giant, highly organized warehouse that lives completely outside of your daily software.
Yes. This is where you store your historical changes so they never, ever get overwritten.
Okay, so that solves the missing history problem. What's step 3?
Once your warehouse is built, you move to step 3, the enterprise semantic model. And this is arguably the most crucial step of all.
Okay, so sticking with our Costco analogy, if the data warehouse is the physical building full of goods, the semantic model is the universal barcode system.
Right.
It ensures that whether a customer buys a soda at register 1 or a pop at register 5, the central computer registers it as the exact same product.
Perfect analogy. The semantic model is the centralized dictionary where every single business definition, revenue, canceled orders, market share, is agreed upon and locked in.
And then finally,
Only after you have that locked-in dictionary do you proceed to step 4, the governed AI interface.
this would be your co-pilot or your SQL agent.
Right. And for the non-technical listener, a SQL agent is basically a translator. It takes your plain English question and instantly translates it into the database code required to pull the answer.
The source actually provides a fantastic real-world example of this from Ninopol.
We do, yeah.
They built a co-pilot feature inside a client's Microsoft Fabric environment. And because they followed this sequencing rule, that co-pilot connects directly to the semantic model.
Right. So it doesn't have to guess how to calculate revenue. It just fetches the math that the semantic model already defined.
And because of that single point of connection, every single employee, from the CEO down to the branch manager, is working from the exact same definitions.
This is conversational BI in action. A user types which counties generated the most orders this quarter, and a perfectly accurate visualization comes back in under 5 minutes.
It completely eliminates the dreaded ad hoc report queue where you email IT for a spreadsheet and wait 3 days.
Oh, those are the worst.
But I have to ask the uncomfortable question here.
That's for it.
If this AI SQL agent is doing all this automated reporting and answering complex strategic questions instantly, are human analysts and mid-level managers out of a job?
It's the most common fear I hear. But the reality is a shift in value, not a replacement.
How so?
AI is just taking over the robotic, mind-numbing tasks. It replaces the analyst who previously spent 40 hours a month manually copying and pasting data from HubSpot into Excel just to rebuild the exact same county summary.
Right.
By clearing out that busy work, you elevate the human. You free them up to look at that instantly generated report and apply strategic judgment. The AI tells you what happened. The human decides what to do next.
You're upgrading your humans from data compilers to actual strategists?
Exactly.
Now, as we move into the final stretch here, we really need to talk about the bottom line. If a listener is sitting in a vendor pitch tomorrow, how should they evaluate these AI tools? Because the published ROI figures in 2026 are incredibly aggressive.
Oh, they're wild.
Vendors are boasting about cutting cycle times by 50% or dropping order entry time by 85%.
Yeah, and the source material issues a very strong warning about those numbers. You have to stop reading vendor efficiency claims as neutral industry benchmarks and start treating them as what they actually are, sales claims.
Right.
Time saved per file is a perfectly fine metric for the transaction layer, but it has a hard ceiling.
Because even if you shave 5 minutes off every single closing, that efficiency doesn't tell you if your best real estate agents are quietly drifting over to a competitor.
Exactly. Faster files are just the floor of the business case.
Yeah.
The real ROI, the ceiling,
Mm.
is using decision layer AI to track revenue per agent and actually predict where market share is moving.
So when you are evaluating a tool, the source gives us a brilliant, defensively minded checklist.
This raises an important question, right? Like, what should you actually be asking these vendors?
First, ask the vendor. What specific assumptions does this tool make about our data structure? A legitimate vendor will be able to name the exact tables and historical data points they require.
Yep. Second, ask, where exactly is access control enforced? You need to hear that it is enforced deep in the data model, not just patched onto the front-end interface.
And crucially, you have to ask, does this tool read our ERP directly? And what breaks when we eventually mature and add a data warehouse?
That is the big one. If the vendor's tool can only survive by duct taping itself directly to your ERP, they're selling you a short-term gadget, not a long-term architecture.
And this evaluation process really culminates in a very clear mandate from the source, which is the build versus buy rule.
It's wondrously simple. You buy at the transaction layer.
Because third-party vendors have spent millions of dollars and thousands of hours training their AI models on millions of specific title documents.
Right, you could never replicate that OCR and natural language processing capability on your own.
But you build at the decision layer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because no outside vendor has a prepackaged AI that can inherently understand the unique, customized, messy way your specific ERP, CRM, and financial ledgers interact.
The true value of decision AI comes entirely from your own unified proprietary data foundation.
Buy the transaction, build the decision. It is the defining strategy for 2026.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We dismantled the hype and established that having basic AI is really just the new normal.
Yeah.
We looked at the terrifying governance gap where security is failing to keep up with adoption. We diagnosed exactly how inconsistent definitions and missing history destroy AI accuracy.
And we laid out that strict four-step sequencing rule required to achieve that holy grail of conversational BI.
It is a fundamental shift in how title companies must operate if they want to survive the next 5 years.
It truly is.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly unsettling thought that builds on a concept briefly mentioned in our sources.
The agentic AI.
Yeah, agentic AI. This is the next evolution. It's AI that doesn't just answer your questions. It is authorized to actually take actions based on what the system says is true.
Moving from passive analysis to autonomous action.
Exactly. It can autonomously open an order a municipal search, or automatically clear a title condition without being prompted.
Right.
So let's play that out to its logical conclusion. If we flawlessly execute the sequencing rule, perfectly govern our decision layer data, and agentic AI begins acting on those high-level business insights autonomously, what happens to the human C-suite?
Oh, wow.
Right. In the title company of 2030, if AI agents are making real-time structural decisions about resource allocation and market expansion based on perfect mathematical models, do tomorrow's executives essentially become the new examiners?
That is wild to think about.
Will a CEO just sit at a desk reviewing and approving the AI's generated corporate strategy the exact same way a title examiner today just reviews the AI's drafted deed exceptions? It is a profound shift in liability, judgment, and corporate power to ponder as you start building your data foundations.
That is a phenomenal, slightly terrifying question to leave hanging in the air.
Well, we will let you mull that one over on your commute. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We highly encourage you to go interrogate your own data structures and check your access controls before you sign the contract on your next AI tool. Until next time, keep questioning the data.